This is section 1.2, graphs of functions. We're going to be using the calculator quite a bit for this. So you may need to stop this and make some notes along the way. All right, so we need to complete the table of values, and then they're going to want you to graph these. Now, you could do this by hand, but since we are going to be graphing extensively with the calculator, we're going to go ahead and jump right in and do that. So I'm going to pull up the calculator. Right. So you can stay on the calculate screen, and if you just use the pad in the middle, the square thing like a mouse pad, you can mouse over here and hit back. Another way is if you hit this calculator button, look at the keypad, it'll turn red. Oh, it's not turning red, but you can see my mouse on it. It'll toggle you between the graph. So I just put that in there. Now, if you already have a graph in here, you're going to hit tab. It goes to F2. You're going to arrow up. And you're going to do this in sequence, not at the same time. You hit control and then delete. You don't hold control and then hit delete. It's just control and then hit delete. It only deletes the equation in F1. Now, if you've not put anything into the calculator, it's going to default to F1 and we're fine. So now we're going to put in our equation. So X is on the very bottom of your keypad. It just turned red. And it's to the third power. So if you have a power higher than the square, use the top of the arrow to the left of the X squared. It's fixing to turn red. That's called a caret, K-A-R-A-T. And that just puts up any exponent. You could put a 2, a 3, or 4, whatever. So ours is to the third. Now, if you look, it is still up in the exponent area. So I'm going to arrow to the right. Use the keypad there. You see it turned red. And put in -5 and then hit enter. Once you hit enter, then the new graph's going to appear. And this is a standard window here. You might have 6.67, but it's going to be pretty close if it's a brand new window. All right, if I'm going to do a couple things. If you need to change your window, let's go to menu. We're going to go to window. And then if you need to go back to a standard window, which is what we're in, we'll go down to zoom standard and you hit enter. That's if we're going to be adjusting the window. All right, so the first thing we need to do is fill in the table. So to get to the table, and you need to write this down, you're going to hit control and then hit the letter T down here on the very bottom. Okay, control and T. You don't hold it, you don't hold control and hit T, it's control and then T. And then you're going to have, excuse me, all these values that you need. And you can use your little arrows. You can see they're turning different colors to move around. Okay, the X values are on the left and the Y values are on the right. So you can go up and down. These are the X's, the Y's are on the right. So I'm going to flip back over to the notes and I'm going to fill in these values. Let me get it right. 22, that was 3. And that keeps you from having to do it by hand. Again, we're going to be graphing extensively and be using these features. So we're going to go ahead and just make your life easier. And this went from positive down to negative. Go back to the calculator. The negatives are on, the positives were on top. And so they're reversed, but just be careful with that. And once you're done using the table, you need to turn the table off. So it's the exact same thing. Control T turns it off. Control T turns it on. As soon as you're done with it, turn it off because when we graph something new, it's going to be kind of horrendous looking if you don't have that table turned off. All right, so they do want you to graph in MyMathLab. This one's going to be the cubic tool. Okay, and let me see, 2, 3, it's going to need 4 points. Okay. All right, and you can use any 4 points. I have a tendency to stay towards the middle here. Any 4 points on the graph, I just use the table that we already have. Now I'm going to show you how to manually adjust your table. Let me make this just a tad smaller. All right, so if we look on the x-axis, this is our largest x value. So x max is 4. X min, the smallest x value is going to be -4. And they have the values down here. Sometimes they give this to you, sometimes they don't. But I'm going to show you how to adjust it manually. So the smallest y value is -40. So that's y min. And this is going to be y max. -35 and -40, it's not that big of a difference. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the calculator. So you can make some notes here. You want to hit menu. And we're changing the window, what we see. So we're going to go to Window Zoom. And we're going to go to Windows Settings. So the two that we're going to use are Windows Settings or Zoom Standard. So Windows Settings. And we have X min, which we determined was -4. And you can tab down to next field. X max was 4. I don't mess with the X scale and Y scale. Sometimes they give it to you. It just determines how many tick marks are on the grid. It doesn't affect the overall graph. So I don't even mess with it at all. Y min, we had -40. You could use the -35. Tab down again, +40. And then you can mouse down or you can tab down to OK. And then hit enter. So when you graph it in MyMathLab, it's going to look like this. You see, it's significantly different than when it's in a standard window. So if we match the window that we're actually graphing in MyMathLab, you can kind of visually check to see if you got it right. Okay. So I'm going to graph these 4 points. So over 2, up 3, somewhere right around here. Over 1, down 4, 0, -5, back 1, -6. I am terrible with drawing. So I'm going to flip back over to the calculator if I had drawn better. It's pretty close. But when you graph it in MyMathLab, it's going to be very close to what you have in the calculator. So I'll have you do the table. You'll actually click on, there'll be like a little grid thing here. You'll click on that. Your big grid will pop up, and then you're going to select this tool and put in the points. Okay. So let's go down here. So this is 3/4 x squared, and these are all even numbers. So let's go back to the calculator. So we're going to put in a new equation. We already have one here. So we're going to hit tab. We're on F2. I need to be on F1. So I'm going to arrow up. Hit control, then delete. It only deletes the equation. If you just hit delete, it's going to, when you go too far, you delete the equal sign. I can get it back to where it needs to be. It's not a big deal. All right, so it's 3/4 x squared. We do have a fraction bar. It's right above the division symbol. So it's control division symbol. Use your arrows to move. I need an arrow to the right. Type in an X, and it was a square. Okay, and hit enter. It looks a little weird, that's fine. So let's get the table out. Control T. All right, so let's see, 1230. Let's go back to the notes. And I filled in the table. So let's look at X min. So this would be X max, I'm sorry. This would be X min, smallest X value. This would be Y max. And this is going to be Y min. So we're going to adjust our window on the calculator to match what's in MyMathLab. Okay, so I want to get rid of the table. I'm done with it. Don't leave that open. Hit menu, go to window, window settings, -20, tab, +20. Again, X scale I'm not going to mess with. -20 for Y min, tab, +20, tab to OK, and hit enter. All right, so that looks significantly different than what we actually had. So that's what it's going to look like when you graph it in MyMathLab. All right, so this is when you go to select the tool, it's the parabola tool, and it's going to need 3 points. So again, I just use any 3 points on this table. I'm just going to use these 3. So we have a point at 0, 0, -2 up 3. I'm just kind of guesstimating. If I could draw better. I'm going to flip back over to the calculator. So you see it's very similar to what we have. So when you get in MyMathLab, it will match up with what you have on your calculator. This one has a T, that's fine. When you put it in the calculator, you're just going to put 4x minus 3. I've tried to do it with a letter other than an X. When you graph, it doesn't work, right? And over here, we already have one in, so we're going to hit tab. Arrow up to F1. Control, then delete. And it was 4x. And let me double check. I think it was -5, -3. -3, and hit enter. All right, that one's a straight line. We need the table, so control, then T. Let's see what 2 is. -11. All right, let's fill all those in. All right, so this is X max, X min, Y min, and Y max. Let's go back to the calculator. I got the values from the table, turn that off, don't leave it open. Even if you're done with it and you're not doing anything else with that equation, turn it off. All right, so menu, go to window settings. It's at -10, 10, -10, +10. Right, so we see what it looks like. It didn't change very much just because it's a straight line. All right, so you're going to select the line tool with this, and that only requires 2 points. And it doesn't matter which two, I always kind of stick towards the middle points. So -1, -7, and then over 1, up 1. We flip back over to the calculator so we can compare those. They look pretty similar. It's getting close to the one where it crosses. Okay. So again, that will match up in MyMathLab. All right, so we need to graph this in a standard window. They want to know if it's a complete graph. So let's do this. Go back to our calculator. We're going to hit tab. Remember, our table's off. We want it off. Arrow up. Control delete. 8. X is on the bottom. We're going to raise it to the third power. So we need that arrow top to the third. That arrow to the right plus 12. X and then square. Once you get the equation in, you hit enter. Let me move this little guy out of the way. And they want this in a standard window. So you're going to hit menu, go to window, and then zoom standard. Again, the two we're going to use are window settings and zoom standard. Right, and I'm just going to sketch that. Look at it again real quick. See where we're crossing. And they want to know, is it a complete graph? The answer is going to be yes. I'm going to show you what an incomplete graph looks like. So you don't have to do this. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to change a setting. Why? Okay, this is an incomplete graph because we don't see that top curve. Okay, it's been cut off. You can kind of tell. So if it's incomplete, it looks like it's been cut off. Here you can see the top of that curve and the bottom of this one. And this just keeps going up and this keeps going down. Okay, so that's a complete graph. So let's look at the next one, 2x squared minus 5. We're going to hit tab, arrow up, control delete, 2x squared minus 5, and then hit enter. Now that's a complete graph. Okay, it looks something like this. Right. So if it was incomplete, like part of this bottom would be cut off. You wouldn't see the dip. You would see it go down, you would see it come up, but you wouldn't see the bottom. All right, so this one's going to be part A, and this is going to be part B. Part A uses a standard window. So y equals x plus 29. I'm going to hit tab, arrow up, control delete, x plus 29, and hit enter. And it says standard window. I can't see anything. Let's go menu, window zoom, zoom standard. That's fine. That's the answer. So again, they're going to have you choose it. You're going to choose, I guess, kind of the blank graph. That's part A. Part B is going to have you adjust your window. Now, the original problem up top is going to give the new window, but you're not going to apply that until you do part B. Part A is always going to be blank. So what we're changing is Y max is going to be 30. So let's adjust that window. Menu, window, window settings. All right, this was -10. This one was 30. Hit OK. Now we can see it. So what happens is sometimes, and the point of this is you graph an equation and you may not see it, and we'll see examples as we go along to different sections where you graph it, but you don't see it. But once I show you how to manually adjust your window, then you'll see the graph. I'm going to go over to my math lab and I'm actually going to show you how to use the graphing tool. So I went ahead and did the table real quick, just so you know where to find everything. This was a cubic and I used, let me show you the calculator, Control T to get the table. Let me turn it off. All right, so let's go and let's look at this. So here's your little pop out function. I guess it's got an arrow. Let me see if I can make this bigger. All right. So it's a 3. Highest power is a 3, so it's going to be the 4-point tool. If the highest power is a 2 with the x squared, you're going to use 3-point quadratic tool. And these are the ones I drew in. And if it's a straight line, it's 2 points that you're going to need. All right, so this one's going to need, it's a cubic, so it's going to need 4 points. So you can use any 4 points on the table. I'm actually going to, let me see the window real quick. All right, so the window x min is -10, x max is 10, and y is for -14 and +14. So I do want to go ahead and change that window real quick. -14. All right, so when I graph it in my math lab, this is what it should look like. Okay, so just Control T. I just need to see that table. I'm going to write down the points I want to use. All right, so I'm going to use -1, 4, 0, 5, 1, 6, and 2, 13. You also could have used like -2, -3. You can't use the -3, -22 because it only goes down to -14. Let me turn that tape off. All right. So this is going to apply to whatever, whether it's a straight line, quadratic, or this cubic. So this one requires 4 points. So I want to go to, let me see. Let me do this real quick. I want to see it a little bit bigger. All right, so my first point I want at -1, 4. If you look in that yellow box, you can see it says -1, 4. I'm just going to move this around. So it tells you where you are, -1, 4, scoot over. Now I don't click anything till I'm exactly at the point I want. Now I click. Now it says grab a second point, so I'm going to do 0, 5. Now the 4 points you pick, the order doesn't matter how you graph it. So over 0, up 5, so 0, 5. Click it. Over 1, up 6. Again, I'm not clicking until I get exactly where I need to be. Click. And then finally 2, 13. Come on. Click. All right, so it has the points. Click save. I'm going to make this smaller. All right, so you see the graph that we have. And let's pull up the calculator. So it looks pretty similar. Okay, so we're going to take this down, check answer. Okay. And then it's going to ask you to graph. They're going to ask you to adjust the window. So it's a 4 and a 35 situation. All right, so menu. So a little bit flatter. You can see it. So let's flip back over. So that part is going to be multiple choice. And you see this one's above and this one's below. So, and if you need to, you can pop these out if you need to see them better. You can't answer the question. All right, so even when you do this, after you get the numbers typed in, you'll have the same graphing prompt. So let's go to our last page, the word problems, which are actually easier than what we just did. All right, we have an equation. It's millions of dollars earned, where X is the number of years after 1995. So we're taking this from section 1.1. What is F of 60? So what do you do with the 60? We are just going to plug it in. Change my color. So again, write it out. Pull up the calculator. All right, so to go, you can use your mouse, this pad in the middle like a mouse, and hit the calculator, or you can hit this little calculator button and it'll toggle you in between. So it's 60 squared minus 7 times 60. Hit enter and I get 3180. The answer to part A gives the number of millions of dollars earned in what year? Okay, so our X was 60. X is the number of years after 1985. So 60 represents what year? It's 60 years after 1985. Right? Think I did it right? There you go, 2045. So it's the year 2045. Because 60 years after 1985 is the year 2045. So we found the millions of dollars earned in the year 2045. Right. Using data from 1950 and projected till 2050, the number of women in millions in the workforce is given by this equation. And so instead of Y, they have P. They do that sometimes with word problems. where X is the number of years, excuse me, after 1950. Find the p-value when X is equal to 40. So what do we do with 40? Good, we just plug it in. And I'm not going to pull the calculator up for that one. But I am using a calculator. Six. So again, I wrote it out how you're going to put it in the calculator. And we get 5246. Explain what this means. So that's going to be a multiple choice. So if X is equal to 40, what year is that? So 1950 plus 40, the year is 1990. 52.46 is the Y. It's the millions of women in the workforce. So it's 52.46 million women in the workforce. In 1990. Again, that part, anytime where they ask you to explain something, it's going to be multiple choice. So just read through those carefully. What value of X do we use for 2020? So X is the number of years after 1950. So we take 2020 and subtract 1950. Boy, they really want me to carry here. 50, 20, 70. Okay. So B is going to have two parts in itself. First of all, they want to know what value you're going to stick in. So you're going to use X equals 70. And then they want you to find the number of women in the workforce in 2020. So you're going to plug 70 into the equation. And I'm going to do that on my little calculator. If it's a basic calculation like this, I'm not going to type it out on the calculator, but anything a little more complex, I will. All right, and that's the second part to part B. All right, the number of students in thousands of osteopathic medicine in a country can be described by this equation, where T is the number of years after 1990. So instead of an X and a Y, those are X's there that you would use instead of the T, and S would be your Y. So again, in the context of a word problem, they do sometimes change the variables in here, okay? So we need to use a graphing utility to graph this. And this is going to be multiple choice. Okay. So this is another way they write it. This is X min. This is X max. That's going to be Y min. And it's going to be Y max. If you have a third component in each one of these, that's your scale. I wouldn't worry about that. Okay, so X's are from 0 to 17. And then from 0 to 300. This will be years. And this will be students in thousands. All right, so I'm going to flip over to the calculator and I'm going to make it big so we can watch. All right, so again, you can use this square pad in the middle of your calculator like a mouse pad and just hover over that and click it in the middle, or you can hit the little calculator button. I need to put a new equation in, so I'm going to hit Tab, arrow up to F1, Control Delete. If you don't do that, you'll have multiple equations in there. There's only going to be maybe once or twice that we actually do that. 3. So I'm going to put it in, but I'm going to use X instead of T. Double check where your decimal is. And don't forget your square. And then I'm going to hit enter. I can't see anything. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. We have not adjusted our window yet. So we're going to hit menu. And if you want to adjust your window first and then put in the equation, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Some students prefer that. All right, X was 0 to 17. Y was 0 to 300. So that's what it actually looks like. So let me change my color. It's right about here to about here. And again, that's going to be multiple choice on the graph. And just watch the scales too. That's what you need to look out for, your X scale and your Y scale, how they have that labeled. Use the graphing utility to predict the number of students of osteopathic medicine in the country in the year 2006. Okay. So what X value are we going to use? Let's go back up. X is or T is the number of years after 1990. So that is going to be 16 years. You could plug it into the equation, or I never actually thought about this till I had a student show me. Control T. So we need to find where X is 16. Let's go all the way down. 148.258. I'll show you if I arrowed. Yeah, 148.258. Oh, I don't know how many decimal places they want. Let's just say it's 2. They do tell you, like, there will be a box for your answer, and underneath it, it'll say round to whatever they want you to round it to. So right underneath the box where you put the answer, it'll tell you where or how many decimal places to round to. And that is the end of section 1.2.